Welcome to a Proficient video series covering Power BI. In this segment, we're going to talk about data exploration using Microsoft's Excel and Power BI tools. So what is Power BI? Power BI is a cloud-based component of Microsoft's O365 that integrates closely with Excel. You can think of Power BI as a cloud-based alternative to the familiar BI Center that exists in most on-prem SharePoint farms. For today's example use case, we're going to start with some hospital discharge data that I grabbed out of a data warehouse. We're then going to wire up a simple Power Pivot model. On top of that, we're going to build a Power View dashboard and then host the whole thing in Power BI and share it with some colleagues. The data I'll be working with today is in this file here, Discharge Data. I queried 3 separate tables in a data warehouse and wrote those results to this file. Our main fact data is in the Discharges tab. Each row here represents a single discharge, so if I'd like to aggregate all of the discharges and count them, I just need to count the number of rows. This data relates to 2 dimension tables. One is a discharging department on this department key, and one is this discharging date, the relationship being on date key, back to my discharge data. All right. First, we got to build a Power Pivot model. Let's open up a fresh version of Excel. We'll go to the Power Pivot tab on the top and manage our model. First thing we need to do is source in from other sources our data that exists in the worksheet I showed you. We'll browse to that worksheet. We'll want to get all the tabs of data in there. Power Pivot is sourcing in those records. Okay, now that we have 3 tabs at the bottom, let's go over to the model view and create a couple relationships between our tables. So we'll put discharges in the middle, the couple dimensions around the edges. Let's create a relationship first for our discharge date key out to our date dimension with it using date key. Let's do the same for department. Department key to department dim to department key. All right, relationships are created there. Let's switch over to our grid view, go to our discharges table, and I wrote a simple DAX calculation that just counts the rows in the discharges table. Let's insert that in there. Okay, 55,000 rows. That's it for our Power Pivot model. Let's close out of that. The next thing we want to do is build a Power View dashboard to let us visualize and explore our data. So in the same Excel file we've been working with, go up to the Data tab, select Existing Connections, double-click the only connection there, and choose Power View Report. Now that we're in the Power View Designer, we can build a dashboard simply by dragging and dropping things in there. So first, let's start with our total discharge calculation that we created. There's our 55,000 discharges. Let's give those a monthly breakdown. And then if we select this and choose column chart, we can visualize the data a little better. We'll expand that chart. Now let's add the ability to slice and dice this data interactively on department. So go over to Discharge Department, and we'll do Department Name attribute. We'll turn this list of department names into an interactive slicer by selecting Slicer. So now we can slice and dice our data in the chart by this attribute. We can multi-select multiple members if we want to. Last thing we'll do is break these discharges down by primary discharge cause. We have that attribute here, and we'll just drag it into the chart. Okay, so here we see non-disease specific is the largest category by far, and well, apparently this department only has non-disease specific. So the last thing we want to do is just save this dashboard once we're happy with it. We'll go ahead and call this Discharge Dashboard. The last thing we want to do is upload our dashboard we just created into the cloud within Power BI. To do that, let's log into our Office 365 account first. We'll be able to see all of the sites available to us under the Sites section. Here's a business intelligence team site we've created that I'd like to put my content in. And here is some previous content I've already uploaded. We can see the individual files here, or alternatively, we can see a visual snapshot of all of these by choosing the Power BI link on the left. So once our Power BI page loads up, we can see a visual snapshot of all of our BI content we had in that library. About in the middle section here, there's an area called BI Home Library, and that's where I want to put my dashboard. So we can switch over to File Explorer, find our Discharges dashboard, and drag it in. Power BI will go off and render this thumbnail for us after a few seconds. Now we see our dashboard. One thing we might want to do is put it into this top area called Featured Reports, which is good for important reports or ones that you might use quite often. So we can choose the ellipses here and say Add to Featured Reports. That'll get added up top. Now let's say we want to share this with some colleagues because we're going to want to share this interesting data. We can switch over to the BI team site. We'll see our discharge dashboard in there now. Choose the ellipses and select Share. And let's say I want to share this with Stephen. Choose that person, hit Share, and Power BI will go off and share that with that person. Last thing we want to do on here is check out our actual dashboard. So I don't actually have Microsoft Silverlight installed in this environment, but if we click the icon in the bottom right corner, the entire page will be re-rendered in HTML5. So here's our Power View dashboard being hosted in Power BI in the cloud. We see we can explore our data with the simple slicers we set up, and this dashboard has been favorited and shared with a colleague. I'd like to thank you for joining me in this whirlwind tour of using Microsoft Excel and Power BI.